It's now day 19 of Russian invasion of Ukraine, and Ukrainian resistance is really holding up. Air raid alerts have been sounded in 19 of 24 Ukrainian regions. Russia has attacked the suburbs of the capital city of Kiev. A town councillor of Bravary has been killed in this fighting. A school in the city of Mykolaiv was hit by Russian missile. Russia has targeted key Ukrainian facilities, especially Ukrainian air defense establishments. Russians have destroyed several Ukrainian airfields. Bishev village of Ukraine has also come under Russian missile attack, where multiple houses, buildings were demolished. Ukrainian forces have shot down 4 planes, 3 choppers on Sunday alone.
Неділя, але хто зараз зважає на це? 8 років.
Important about today, about war. We will win. Glory to Ukraine. We were able to evacuate nearly 120,000 people using humanitarian corridors. The main task now is Mariupol. Our diplomatic effort is focused on aid to reach the city.
Росія втратила тисячі одиниць військової техніки.
It's been the same thing. People are still trying to evacuate with CZ lines and CZ. A lot of people actually standing in the central railway station here in Kiev trying to evacuate. We see a lot of trains and even more routes are being added by the Ukrainian railway company to bring people out of Kiev. It's interesting to tell is all of these routes, all of these train rides are for free to Lviv, to Uzhhorod, to other cities in the western part of Ukraine. But if you want to go across the border, for example, to Warsaw, there is an evacuation train to Warsaw. You have to pay for this only distance from Lviv to Warsaw. So people are trying to use this advantage of evacuation trains. Still, some of them in Kiev are still trying to comprehend whether it's appropriate time to leave right now, or is it better to stay here in Kiev? Because in Kiev you have this wrong feeling of being safety, because it is the capital of Ukraine, and it is covered with air defense systems of Ukraine really largely. And we see these reports like this night accident, which resulted in targeting the Obolon residential building, actually, with casualties.
Now, let me quickly cut across to Serhiy, who's in Kiev right now. He's bringing us all the reports from on ground, and we hear that as millions of people leave the capital city of Kiev, there are many more, in fact, thousands of more people who are still left to fend for themselves. Humanitarian aid needs to reach them. Kiev seems to be preparing a strategy to try and suffice until this war ends. Serhiy bringing us more details on that.
As the Russian army claims that they will take Kiev in few days. Today is 19 days, and we are still working. We still have what to eat, what to drink, etc., etc. I just want to mention that there was not only one attack on the Obolon region. There was also an attack on an aircraft factory, one of the oldest, by the famous Ukrainian air constructor Antonov. There's a guy who constructed the Mriya, the biggest aircraft in the world, were also destroyed by the Russian in Gostomel. More than that, in Rivne, there also was an attack on a TV tower, just to destroy it and to close the Ukrainian TV networking for the real information. At the same time, in Melitopol, where cruelly Russian troops stole the mayor of Melitopol, they announced another woman who will be the mayor, who will take his authority, and she announced that don't worry, people, Russian digital TV channels will come soon, so retranslate your TV sets. So what we see for right now, Russians have several ideas, several tactics how to invade Ukraine. As I said before, they're taking the hostages in the civilian villages, and they're covering them as a shield against the Ukrainian army and our forces. That's why we are still on the same position as the Russians, but our air forces attacked their backs to destroy their supporting, like gasoline, like food, etc., etc., etc. Meanwhile, as you know, Russian claims that they are open water for the Crimea Peninsula, and what we see for right now, they're destroying the Mariupol. We're not talking about the humanitarian corridors right now. They destroy the city. It's in a circle, and their main idea is just to control the road, which they will use to support Crimea Peninsula and people who are starving there since they invaded in 2014. This is the situation for right now.
Right, you're saying that the attacks are only widened, and this comes even as parallelly talks have been initiated, and that's what it appears that Ukrainians are now holding on to hope, because parallelly we believe that on both sides there seems to be some kind of headway or some kind of agreement. But what is that hasn't been established, but talks are currently underway parallelly, even while Russia widens its attack in several other parts of Ukraine. And as we see, attacks continue even on day 19. Kiev's Antonov aircraft plant has been shelled at by Russian forces. A sprawling Antonov plant, which has made some of the greatest jets ever made in history, in world history, now damaged. Russian soldiers have attacked a high-rise building as well today, along with that Antonov plant, killing at least 2 people as per reports. India has a strong link with Antonov. In fact, in 1984, India became the launch customer for its AN-32 military transport aircraft. Designed to withstand adverse weather conditions, the AN-32, they were used to ferry cargo and personnel to every terrain, including the Himalayan frontier. Even now, India operates over 100 AN-32s, which depends on the Antonov plant in Kiev to upgrade and fly safely. Now, this invading Russian forces have really destroyed the biggest plane in the world, the Antonov AN-225, named Mriya on the Dream, or the Dream as it's called, in Ukraine. In fact, very unfortunate scenes of this plant completely being set ablaze by shelling from Russian troops. And here is the biggest plane in the world, the Antonov AN-225, that's called the Mriya or the Dream, that's now set ablaze. Now, this Dream jet was hit when parked at the Hostomel airport near Kiev. The strategic airlift cargo aircraft was designed by the Antonov Design Bureau back in the 1980s. It's historic, unfortunately now gutted. Now, meanwhile, Ukraine claims to have busted Russia's invincibility myth. Mocking the claim that Russia could capture Kiev in 2 days, the commander-in-chief of Ukraine army has called this invincibility of Putin's army a mere myth. The army chief has pointed out to multiple attacks by the Ukrainian army that shot down several Russian military tanks and choppers. Ukraine's military chief has said that in the vicinity of Vesel, Kharkiv, Ukraine, an anti-craft missile system called TOR shot down Russian UAV on the altitude of 3,200 meters. Here are some of those images of how Ukraine hit back at the Russian military vehicles. In the last 2 weeks, Ukraine has shot down many Russian choppers and aircrafts. In Kharkiv, visuals show Russian aircrafts being shot down by Ukrainian army. In Mykolaiv, a Russian jet was shot down by Ukraine. In fact, the jet turned into ashes just within minutes of that strike. In Mykolaiv, Ukrainian army has captured Russian military tanks and set them on fire. On the other hand, a suspected Russian drone was shot down in the outskirts of Kiev. In the Ochakov city in southern Ukraine, a Russian plane was shot down by the Ukrainian army. In Brovazky, a Russian army tank was set ablaze after Ukrainians captured the military vehicle. Remember, this is a spirit that Ukrainians are putting forward, even with little arm and ammunition. They're putting up a very brave front, resisting the movements of Russian forces and counterattacks being reported from several parts in whatever measure. Now, India today speaks to Ukrainian Member of Parliament, Solomia Brovozka, about the 4th round of peace talks and what she really expects from it. Let's have a listen. Even as Russia and Ukraine attempts at talks and they in fact call it progressive, they're attempting to come to some conclusion at the earliest. While that said, we hear that President Zelensky has now budged from his adamant stance. Could you elaborate on what have you stepped down on just to end the war?
So first of all, probably today will be the fourth round of the meeting between Ukrainian and Russian delegation. We know that they have discussions almost every day online, but you have to understand that we cannot step back and say that we will find compromise on actually on all four issues, demands from their side. That's first of all to recognize Crimea as a part of Russia. That's impossible what they demand. That's to recognize so-called republics, Luhansk and Donetsk, being as an independent states. That's actually the second point, which is can be defined any compromises. And of course, to demilitarize the armed forces. That's the issue which will kill Ukraine, and it will be that will be the suicide without having any battle. So I'm not sure that we will hear before the meeting from our working group what they're going to discuss. But we hope at least that they will find compromise on humanitarian corridors, which are not effective and not in all, especially in Mariupol, where we actually do not have for this almost 15 days of their siege. No one can just leave the town, and nothing can be brought to Mariupol. I think that has to be the issue number one, and we hope Mariupol will be the point to discuss for this meeting.
Now, as Russia continues its offensive to capture capital city of Kiev, Ukrainians have now refused to bow down. My colleague Gaurav Sawant there in conversation with Hennady Diki, mayor of Bela Cerkva. He said that Russians may be advancing from the north and the northeast, but their advances will be stalled at the south side. Here's what he said.
Preparations intensifying for the defense of Kiev, and we are in Bela Cerkov. This is about 70 kilometers from Kiev, and with us is the mayor. This is the axis from the south. We've been talking about the north, northwest and west, three approaches to Kiev that the Russians are trying to advance from. In the south, they are being stopped, and with us is the mayor of Bela Cerkov. Sir, what's the current position right now?
Звичайно, наше місто, як і всі великі міста України, були здійснені ракетні удари з сторони електропостачання, водопостачання, газозабезпечення, а також теплопостачання.
Today the situation in Bela Cerkva is stability. All the life support system works stably, but we also was attacked by Russian Federation army. We have some missiles here.
So there was a missile strike. There have been missile strikes here. Now, this is quite a militarized zone, even as we speak. Everyone's carrying a weapon. The mayor himself is carrying his assault rifle. His team that work with him, they are armed with their weapons, walking alongside him. Is a Russian invasion or a Russian attack from this flank also expected, like Brovary or in Irpin and Bucha? The Russians are trying to advance from there. What about this place?
Поки що на нас атаки не було. Було декілька диверсійних груп.
No, the situation in Bela Cerkva is stably. We had some sabotage groups, but now it's liquid.
They've been liquidated.
We'll liquidate.
That's a very important point that you make. The mayor is making a very important point about sabotage. Russian infiltrators, they are coming into the system not with their weapons. Their weapons are already here, and then they attempt to target the Ukrainian security forces from behind. And that is where, if you notice this change in the armband, it used to be yellow earlier, it's blue now. It's to keep an eye on who's on the Ukrainian side and who's on the Russian side. But there were some missile attacks that took place in Belasarkov. What was the damage like?
3 людини загинуло, на жаль, і 12 людей поранено. Також є зруйновані будівлі і, звичайно,
we have 3 deaths and 12 wounded. Some building is destroyed, but
you're fighting on.
Yeah.
Okay. In this locality, there have been some missile strikes. Some military installations have also been targeted by the advancing Russian soldiers. But is Kiev safer from the south side as the Russians approach from the north and the northwest?
Сьогодні в Україні немає міста, де би було безпечно знаходитись, тому що ми бачимо.
There are today no safe cities here in Ukraine because we see that missiles attack is on the west, on the south also.
Well, that's an important point. For speaking to us here on India Today, Mayor, many thanks, sir. Ma'am, many thanks. So, protecting the city, but making a very important point. No city is safe from a Russian missile attack. These attacks continue, but ground forces are being stalled at multiple locations. The pitched battles for the control and defense of Kiev continue. With cameraman Pawan Kumar at Belasarkov on the southern axis to Kiev, Ukraine, Gaurav Sawant for India Today.
Now, as Russia ups the ante against Ukraine, President Zelensky continues to lead from the front. On Sunday, Zelensky was spotted visiting a military hospital in Kiev to be meeting with wounded soldiers, to be lifting their spirits. Remember, these soldiers have been fighting hard to protect their country. Many of them injured are being treated at hospitals. Currently, Zelensky there now meeting with those soldiers, clicking photographs with them. These wounded soldiers are being treated at that hospital. Zelensky, who Russia accuses to have fled time and again, visits this hospital to meet soldiers, lift their spirits, have conversations with them, and of course, really motivating them in this dark hour for Ukraine.
Нормально? Молодці, дуже круто. Міцні хлопці. Давно? Нещодавно. Нещодавно? Ні, що? Потерпіння.
Now, reiterating his demand for closing the skies of Ukraine, Zelensky has warned that it is just a matter of time before Russian missiles hit the NATO territory. Zelensky has also said that Russia will begin a war and Moscow won't bat an eyelid before using Nord Stream as weapons. In fact, Ukraine has also insisted on talks directly between the two presidents, Zelensky and Putin, saying that only a meeting between the two top leaders could hopefully bring peace.
Обстрілу Міжнародного центру миротворчості та безпеки загинуло 35 людей. Ще 134 людини отримали поранення. Там не відбувалось нічого, що могло би загрожувати території Російської Федерації. І всього лише у 20 кілометрах звідти кордони НАТО. В минулому році я чітко попереджав лідерів НАТО, якщо не буде жорстких превентивних санкцій проти Російської Федерації, вона піде війною. Ми були праві. Я говорив протягом довгого часу, Північний потік – це зброя, яка ударить по всій Європі. Тепер це очевидно. І зараз я повторюю знову, якщо ви не закриєте наше небо, то це лише питання часу, коли російські ракети впадуть вже на вашу територію, на територію НАТО, на домівки громадян країн НАТО.
Now, Russian airstrikes in a military airbase in western Ukraine has really led to multiple casualties. Over 30 people have lost their lives. As many as 30 rockets have hit the base. Here's our report on this deadly airstrike.
A Russian airstrike hit a large military base in western Ukraine on Sunday, extending the conflict into new areas. At least 35 people died and more than 130 were wounded, according to regional governor Maxim Kozitsky. He said Russian planes fired around 30 rockets at the facility, but some were intercepted. Reuters was unable to verify his statement. Britain said the incident at the extensive Yavoriv base, just 15 miles from the border with NATO member Poland, marked a significant escalation. It also heightens fears that Russia's invasion of Ukraine could spill over into neighbouring NATO member states. US President Joe Biden has previously said NATO would defend every inch of its territory if that happened. Intensive Russian attacks have been reported around the country. In Chernihiv, around 100 miles northeast of Kiev, firefighters rescued residents from a burning building after heavy shelling, verified video from Ukraine's emergency services showed. Moscow denies targeting civilians. Ukraine also reported renewed airstrikes on an airport in the west and attacks on the southern town of Mykolaiv, where officials said 9 people were killed. Ukraine's human rights monitor said Russia used phosphorus bombs in an overnight attack on the town of Popasna in the eastern Luhansk region. Reuters has not verified those reports. In the southern port city of Kherson, more than 400 people were detained by Russia's National Guard as they protested against Russia's occupation of the area, according to Ukraine's military high command. Despite the violence, both Russia and Ukraine said they thought progress could be made at peace talks, 18 days after Moscow launched what it calls a special military operation. A Ukrainian delegate said Russia was beginning to, quote, talk constructively, and results were possible in a matter of days. A Russian delegate also said they'd made significant progress.
Now, as Russia continues to close in on capital city of Kiev, the 4th round of peace talks is going to take place shortly from now. Delegations from both the countries will restart their negotiations via video conferencing. Representatives of both countries have met at least thrice before this, including face-to-face talks between foreign ministers, but really have failed to make any headway. The only positive outcome of these peace talks has been creating humanitarian corridor for civilians and a brief ceasefire at certain locations. Now, the last round of peace talks took place in Turkey, where the foreign ministers of both those countries met with Turkey's foreign minister mediating those talks. Ukrainian President Zelensky now has called in for Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett to intervene and hold talks. Ukrainian president has said that maybe Jerusalem can be a constructive place for Russia and Ukraine to hold talks. Now, India Today speaks to a Ukrainian journalist, Anna Basova, about the expectations from the 4th round of peace talks between both the countries. Here's what they expect. Let's have a listen.
How, the talks that are likely to take place in a couple of hours, we are told this is the video conferencing round. What are key expectations from this round of talks? And if there is forward movement, if at all, would that only be once the heads of state, President Zelensky, if and when President Zelensky and President Putin talk?
First of all, I don't expect these talks to take place. I mean, between our president and Putin, it's hardly possible that he comes out of his bomb shelter in Ural, where he's told to be hiding from everyone, from the world. Secondly, the conditions Ukraine will insist on in each and every negotiation round remain the same. It's withdrawing all the troops, and it's giving back our territories that are currently occupied, including those in Donbass, and of course including Crimea, occupied and annexed 8 years ago. Russia, of course, will not seize any single square meter of the occupied territories, and that is why I'm pretty sure right now that there will be no sense in the upcoming talks.